Hello and welcome to our Tech Talk today, Western Australia from mining to startup hub. I'm your host, Steve Knight, and I am Adjunct Professor of Business Communication at INSEAD and the founder of Art of Comms, the EdTech platform, which helps all of us become excellent communicators. So I'm part of the startup community myself, and my company is based here in Perth, Western Australia. So today's webinar is part of the Tech Talk X series by Digital at INSEAD. It's dedicated to exploring new digital technologies, their applications, as well as their impact on management, business, and society. So for more information on that, you can visit the Digital at INSEAD website. Thanks to our sponsor, Accenture. The panel today and myself are all here in Western Australia, and as such, we would like to pay tribute to the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and their elders past and present as the traditional custodians of the country, Budja, on which the panel today is located. We also acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout all of the state of Western Australia and recognize their continuing and cultural connection to land, waters, and community. We pay our respect to them, their cultures, and to elders both past and present. Now, before I introduce today's panel, let me do some housekeeping for you. You, the audience, are muted and the video chat function is disabled. Sorry about that. We hope you'll have lots of questions, though, for our panel. So all you have to do is just use the Q&A tab that you'll see along the bottom of your screen in the Zoom window. So it's the Q&A tab, and we want you to ask as many questions as possible. Great to have a healthy Q&A session. It'll be a great honor for me to pose your questions to the panel. Just keep them short and to the point. And perhaps if you've been in Australia or you're in Australia, let us know as well, because that's of interest. And to help us identify the most relevant questions for you, the audience, you can actually vote on the existing questions. So you can upvote them so they appear up the top. This webinar is being recorded. Should you encounter any technical issues, which we hope you don't, you just can email, or you can email digital@insead.edu. Now, I want to tell you about some facts about Western Australia, because I'm sure not everybody watching and listening will be from WA, as it's called for short. So the size of Western Australia, as you can see from the map on the screen, is absolutely enormous. It's about a third of the continent of Australia. And in case you didn't know, the continent of Australia is pretty much the width of the USA and Canada. So that from LA to New York, that's Perth to Sydney, Melbourne. It's a huge country, but with only 25 million people. So a big country the size of North America, with a very small fraction of that population. If we look at the next slide here, we can see that Perth is Australia's wealthiest city. That's an artist impression, of course, but it's a beautiful city. And at the forefront is Elizabeth Quay, and that was only developed about 5-6 years ago. Time flies, but it's very beautiful. I had a walk around the Swan River on Sunday. I did 12 kilometers around that river, and it's just so beautiful. And it's closer in distance to Singapore and Jakarta than it is to Sydney. So if you're working in the Asia region, or you do lots of frequent trips to Europe or vice versa, it's very conveniently placed. It takes a lot longer from Sydney or Melbourne. And the other thing is we share the same +8 time zone as 60% of the rest of the world, which is amazing. And for those of you who are INSEADers, and you'll have experienced Singapore, no doubt, we're on the same time zone as Singapore. And like Singapore, we don't have daylight saving. So that keeps things very simple in the +8 region. Okay, now if we look at the economy of Western Australia as a state, it's largely based on unprocessed primary products. And mining makes up a quarter of Western Australia's GDP. So not Australia's GDP, but Western Australia's GDP, 25%. We also have agriculture, forestry, and fishing. And of course, as you no doubt know, oil and gas as well. So it's a resource-rich state of Australia. And as you can imagine, going forward in time, and I'll be talking to the minister, I'm sure, a little bit about this, we've got some pretty hefty carbon reduction targets to meet by 2030, which is just around the corner. And of course, the zero target by 2050. And that's our state's big GDP. So we've got a big battle on our hands, which is why perhaps innovation is so important here in Western Australia. We're about to find out because I'm going to introduce our panel. So what I'm going to do when you hear your name, dear panel members, I'd love you to switch on your camera, give us a wave, and I'll talk through one by one. So let me first introduce Kate Kirwin. Kate is founder and CEO of She Codes Australia. And there she is in all her glory with a beautiful pink She Codes sign behind. We'll be talking to Kate in just a moment. We have the Honourable Stephen Dawson, who's Minister for Innovation and the Digital Economy for the Western Australian State Government. Welcome, Stephen. And we have Dr. Intan Oldakowska, who's co-founder and CEO of Earflo and also Rex Ortho. So we'll be hearing about those companies very shortly as well. So I want to keep the energy really high, dear panel. I want to keep it, it's obviously got to be focused and it's serious, but I want it to be fun and entertaining as well. So on that note, I'm going to start with you, Kate. I'm going to give you 45 seconds, Kate, to tell me what keeps you busy right now and what you're most proud of in the last 6 months. Kate.
Hi, nice to be here. I run She Codes Australia. Our huge, big, audacious goal is to inspire 100,000 women across the country to enter tech careers by 2025, which I'm very aware is just around the corner next year. And we've got a bunch of reasons why we're focusing on that. The gender diversity gap in tech, currently only 29% of roles in tech are held by women, but we know 95% of Australians are going to need to upskill or reskill in emerging technologies in the next 5 years. So we've got a huge opportunity, just trying to close the gender gap. I'm really proud of lots of things. I was just named the WA Young Australian of the Year for 2024. A couple of months ago. So I had the opportunity to celebrate with the other Australians of the year, go to Canberra. And we also just celebrated another batch of women coming through the She Codes program, starting to see them get jobs and succeed in their roles in tech.
Great. And I remember, Kate, seeing a post of yours on LinkedIn and you said, oh my goodness, we get to Canberra and there's a flag of me flying in the wind along with the other people. So how did that feel? Have a flag with your face on it flying at
Do you know what?
Canberra?
It's actually on my floor just down here because I don't know what to do with it. But they posted it from Canberra. So I've got a giant flag, which was floating outside of Old Parliament House for the whole month of January, which is so surreal. It was very cool that my mum was able to come on the trip and my brother was there as well. So we got most of the family to get a photo with my giant flag doing this.
And now you're using it as a rug on the floor? You should have it up behind
it's
you.
just in a pile on the floor. It's not a rug, but it I don't actually have a flagpole outside my house, so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to hang it.
Okay, and I've always been a good communicator, but I was absolutely terrible at maths and still am. I got the figures that you said there that you need to get to by 2025, as you said, next year. So how many extra women do you need to get through your coding program by presumably the end of next year?
Yeah, so our goal
How
is
many?
to inspire 100,000 women. And to date, we have directly taught through our programs over 12,000, and our broader impact is about 30,000. So we've done a lot, but there's definitely a lot of room to go to kind of hit those audacious targets.
So 70,000 to go by the end of next year?
Yeah.
Wow, you ain't going to be doing no sleeping. No time to wave that flag either.
I
All right,
know,
Kate, thank
that's
you.
why it's still on the floor.
Kate, thank you very much. Minister Dawson, Stephen, well, we have the same name, which is great. And I think like me, Stephen, you're not originally from these parts. I'm from London. I believe you're from Ireland. You can tell us. So maybe you'll include that in your answer. Stephen, I see you all the time. You're always on LinkedIn. You're always doing things in the community. There's a song in football, isn't there? He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. And I often think of that when I see you around. And so tell me, Stephen, what's keeping you busy right now? And what are you most proud of in the last 6 months?
Well, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me this afternoon. You are correct. I am from Ireland originally, but like you have camped here in Western Australia and love this amazing special place. I'm the Minister for lots of things, so emergency services, innovation, digital economy, science, medical research, and I also help our leader with state and industry development, jobs and trades. So there's always lots to keep me busy. What I'm, I guess, most proud of is, our innovation ecosystem that we have in Western Australia. We have world-leading people doing world-class things here. Amazing people like Kate, who we just heard from, or indeed Intan, who we'll hear from next, who really are helping, grow our innovation ecosystem. As a state government, we're very keen to diversify our economy, and the figures you pointed out earlier on show how reliant we are on mining. And certainly a lot of it is mining iron ore. But we want to diversify the economy. We want to create new jobs in this new economy. We want to take advantage of the race to decarbonize the planet. And so we're creating as many opportunities in that diversification space as we can.
And what are you most proud of in the last 6 months? I'm sure there's lots of things. You've just got to name one.
It's a hard one, Steve. There's so many things that we've done. I think being able to get more funding for the innovation portfolio, I think, has been positive. We've had a particular focus on ensuring that we have more women involved in this space, but also more people from regional Western Australia and more First Nations people. So I think that's probably the proudest thing I've been involved in, and I think we are starting to kick some goals.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. And last but by no means least, Dr. Intan. So, Doctor, you have a wonderful PhD with 2 biomedical, bioengineering facets to it. I'm fascinated by what you do. Tell us about what keeps you busy right now with your 2 companies, because you've got Earflo and you've got Rex Ortho, which you run with your husband, Matt, who's also a doctor as well, a PhD doctor. So what keeps you busy the most right now? And what are you most proud of in the past 6 months?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Stephen. Really a pleasure to be here. Really, I'm technical by background. My background is biomedical engineering. So what keeps me up at night is really all the engineering stuff that I have to solve to make sure that my innovations, the things that I'm creating, obviously with Rex Ortho and Earflo, be safe enough for patients and actually help them and improve their outcomes. So at the moment with the Earflo, we're really preparing for a launch in the next 12 months. So making sure that I find all the bugs and making sure that when it gets to patients, it's going to be as good as possible, as safe as possible, and it's going to really help them. And the same with Rex Ortho. We're really preparing for clinical trial now. So all the engineering technical problems is kind of really what keeps me up at night. And of course, fundraising for all the companies and making sure everything stays afloat. What I've been most proud of, I think, in the last 6 months is we actually did start a larger scale clinical trial for Earflo. And recently we've been able to hear some, results and testimonials from patients and how it's, changed their lives, that their children weren't hearing. Our device helps children with chronic ear infections. That often means that they can't hear very well, and so they get behind at school and those types of things. So being able to hear firsthand that the devices that we've created have helped these kids is just incredible. And that's really where, innovation can help, and my passion about really helping, children in this space. We've also actually been to the Pilbara and start doing trial with Aboriginal children up there. And again, obviously it's really rewarding to be able to get to that milestone. It's been a long, hard road, but it's all worth it.
Excellent. And when you said keeps you so busy, keeps you up awake at night, I'm suddenly imagining this person that's brain just never stops. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where I'm sort of looking at these sort of drawings during the day, and then at night I go, hang on, I forgot about that particular thing. I really need to, contact someone. So yeah, it doesn't stop when especially both of us are working on the same things.
Yeah, well, we're lucky to have you both. It takes brains to change things in the world. So thank you for being part of that system and for helping people here in Western Australia. So let's get to the nitty gritty. And one of the big reasons that we're actually doing this TED Talk X here in Western Australia is because we're very proud to have a unique memorandum of understanding between INSEAD Business School, the business school of the world, and the Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation from the Western Australian government, of which Stephen is responsible for. So Stephen, I know the backstory because it must have been 2.5 years ago now. I was running my course, Art of Comms, at INSEAD in Fontainebleau, and I had 3 of the MBA participants come running down the stairs to the pit of the amphi during a break and said, "Hey, Steve, you said you're in Perth, right? We're coming there." And I said, how come? And they said, "Oh, we're doing this thing." And I was like, "Wow, we're doing that. That's fantastic." So it is unique. Stephen, can you just tell us briefly how that unique partnership came about, and very briefly how it works and what it means for the future?
Sure. Well, I should first of all acknowledge the amazing team that we have at JETSI, our Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science, Innovation, who are very focused on creating as many opportunities for our innovators in Western Australia as possible. We want to learn from the best. And so by striking up relationships with people like INSEAD or indeed the Founders Factory, we believe that we're allowing our smart people the best access to the smarter people around the world. So in 2022, an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, was signed with the INSEAD Business School. From our perspective, it recognised how important you are to innovation around the world. But we wanted to, I guess, learn from you. And so the program brings groups of, it's the Startup Summer Program down to Western Australia every year, normally around July. And the teams of students, MBA students, come down and they help us by looking at our ecosystem here and doing a report on what they found or what they find. And so far we've had groups in both years look at a range of things, including how we treat women in our ecosystem, or indeed the opportunities that we create for women in the ecosystem. So it's a partnership between Western Australia and INSEAD, and I think it augurs well for the state and for the future. But it also hopefully creates opportunities for INSEAD students to actually experience Western Australia, because for many, particularly those in Europe, we are very far away. And so we're able to, along with INSEAD, support the students to get here and help them, spend their time here. We provide some assistance, but we also benefit because we learn from some of the smartest students from around the world.
Yeah, and I guess obviously there's a lot to glean from the reports that the MBA participants produce just before they leave or shortly afterwards, and you go through those. And I guess because they're bright, hungry, fantastic participants who've already had 7 years experience before they've even come to INSEAD to do their MBA, sometimes you must look at it and go, "Fantastic, look, we're doing this." And then there must be some things in there where you think, "Oh my goodness, we really need to pick the pace up a little bit here." Would that be fair assumption?
Look, it's really important for us to be able to, I guess, to take a proper look at what is going on. If you're in the bubble every day, then you see certain things. But having people from outside come in who are amazingly experienced and with a fresh pair of eyes give us some advice on what they think is lacking or indeed is good about the ecosystem is really valuable for us. So we certainly use it as a learning exercise, but also we're able to act upon the rich advice that we get from the students who come down here.
Great. Okay, thank you. So I want to get back to Kate and Intan very shortly, but Stephen, firstly, I just wanted to ask you, Western Australia, as we have said traditionally and currently, the massive resources state. That's what it's known for around the world. People come from Houston, people come from London, people come from all over the world, from South America, from Brazil, to work here in our industries. So because we have to make changes to the carbon emissions, I know that the West Australian government has been very, very busy building an ecosystem for startups, building an ecosystem for engineering and science. And I guess some people around the world might go, "Well, that's nice. They give money to people who are starting up their businesses." But I should imagine it's absolutely crucial that the government of Western Australia does invest in this ecosystem, because without it, we ain't going to meet those targets. Would that be a fair assumption?
Absolutely. Look, mining has been a real boon for our economy for very many years, particularly iron ore mining. But as we do move towards 2050 in particular, and as we need to not only decarbonise Western Australia or Australia, but the world, it is important that we look at new opportunities. And mining will play a big role in our state's economy for the future, whether it is iron ore or indeed critical minerals. So we have an abundance of lithium and nickel and rare earths and all those kind of things that will help or are helping with electric cars or such like. But it is important for us to create those new opportunities for people locally. Now, of course, we do have, our mining sector has been world leaders for a long time, and so they continue to lead in areas like automation and robotics. I mean, many of our mine sites are managed or run from 1,700 kilometers or 1,200 miles away from Perth or from the mine site. So the technology that they're using is really it can be used in areas like space. And so, of course, we've got a burgeoning space sector in Western Australia, and we're working on, a lunar rover for a future mission for NASA. So the mining companies have been leading and will continue to lead, but we're using their technology, their skills, and hopefully translating what they've got into other areas, including our health system. So we're doing lots of good things, but certainly diversifying our economy is a really important thing for us to do. And as I said earlier, we've got many smart people here. We've got Nobel laureates, all sorts of people who've made it big around the world. My job is hopefully to encourage more of them to stay locally and create more opportunities to allow them to stay locally. Until recently, we haven't had too much VC capital money in Western Australia, and that's something that we're looking at growing at the moment. So I want people to be able to stay here if they want to stay here. It's an amazing place. It's beautiful, as we know, Steve, for those of us who are immigrants, but we just need to create the opportunities to allow people to stay in this amazing place too.
Yep. So if we were to turn back the clock before the government's initiative into building the startup and tech ecosystem, how would you describe it? Was it a vast desert of nothing much going on, and then you injected all this energy and money into the system? So what was it like maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, for example, or maybe before that?
It's probably very unfair to ask me, Steve. I've been in this role now for about 2 years, and so my head's only been in this innovation ecosystem for that long. Prior to that, I was a Minister for Environment and other things, and so my head was focused on, banning single-use plastic or bringing in a container deposit scheme or creating new parks. So it's only really been that last 2.5 years that I've had my head in this ecosystem. But certainly what I've found since I've been here is that we do have many people who have got great ideas. And so my job has been to help them, whether it's startup, scale up, or indeed get people from non-traditional areas into this ecosystem so that we can create opportunities for everybody. But this is not me talking about myself, but certainly I've worked incredibly closely with people in the sector, and together I think we continue to broaden the ecosystem to make it a much better place. So in the last 2.5 years, I've certainly seen benefits, but there's more we can do. But I'm committed to working with everybody else, and doing it together.
Thank you, Stephen. And Intan, I'd like to come to you. You have the two amazing companies, Earflo and Rex Ortho. We've just heard about government initiatives, government support. How has that been for you? Because I guess for many startups, myself included, it would have been perhaps you might think, oh, let's go and set up the company in London or New York or Los Angeles or France. And yet here we are in Western Australia, and that might come as a surprise to people. So in all honesty, Intan, over the years that you've been running your businesses, how have you felt supported by the West Australian government, and has that shifted in your opinion?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And I think certainly I started, the Rex Ortho project started about 12 years ago now. So I think thinking about when you said, turn back the clock, sort of 10 years. And I think I was really at the beginning of my sort of, biomedical innovation, this kind of entrepreneurship journey. And certainly I think W have come a long way with support for innovators in those sort of 12 years. Right at the beginning, I think we, even though there's maybe not as much funding and those types of things in 10 years, but there is a lot of raw talent in WA. And we were certainly, I was certainly with Matt as well, really just searching and finding these really key people. So certainly for Rex Ortho, it's an orthopedic device company for hip fracture. Royal Perth Hospital, which is under East Metro Health system, they have a fantastic world-class, biomedical engineering facility there that basically no one knows about, and it's just in this basement, and it's just incredible, talent in there. And so we really leveraged those existing systems that are already there to be able to get to the sort of, next phase. And I think Earflo started about 5 years ago, and I think we've actually been able to leverage a lot of these new funding opportunities that have come, a lot of the support that's been, sort of starting to come through in the WAQ system. And so that's really sort of, accelerated the development of Earflo to, we're pretty close to being launch ready now. So much faster than Rexorber has. So yeah, so I think it's been a definitely a progression over the last 10 years that I've certainly seen.
And both Rexo and Earflo, if I'm right in understanding, are pioneering in their field. It's the first of what you're doing, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an innovative technology. We've got sort of a portfolio of patents for each of those, the novel features in each of these conditions. And certainly we're bringing this to market and hopefully to improve patient outcomes, because we are sort of the first in that particular sort of, technical area.
Yes, and I'm always amazed, and even before I came to live in Australia, about how much technology and banking, new things actually start in Australia, and I think a lot of Australians are not aware of that. And you think, yeah, you had that in Australia like 10 years before we had it in the UK or France or something. So I think it's exciting, and you're an example of that. So thank you. And I'll come back to you, Intan. Thank you for sharing your experience. And Kate, I should just perhaps explain to the people that are listening and watching. So Kate, I know you because with my startup, the Art of Comms with the EdTech platform, which was part of the +8 accelerator program back in 2019, you were the program manager on that +8 program. And one of the things that's always amazed me, especially as to see you just launch and launch and launch and grow, is that how you were doing all of the she codes at the same time as running the +8 program for a few years. And we were going off to LA, and you're so humble and so, yeah, not blowing your own trumpet about it. And I'm amazed by that. So Kate, how did you do all that? How did you have the energy to be running she codes, doing SpaceCube +8 program? I mean, we've heard that Intan stays up all night thinking of ideas. Are you the same?
A little bit. I think I'm really driven by the idea of impact and how we can make an impact and how we can make a difference. My journey into starting She Codes was born from curiosity. I started working at SpaceCube, which is the biggest co-working space in Western Australia, and just got really curious about what people were building. They were building apps, they were building businesses, they were building websites. And I just got really curious and wanted to learn a bit more. And so I started teaching myself how to code, and found very quickly that the communities that existed weren't very beginner friendly or female friendly. So I set about trying to solve my own problem, and have kind of just kept pushing from that. And what brings me lots of joy is seeing the women that we've supported through the program, seeing them survive and thrive in technical careers, and seeing the needle move. And I've been doing this now for 9 years. So I started when I was 21. And we've actually, like, you can see the difference. I was just at a tech conference recently, and 40% of the audience was women. And I'm not personally responsible for all of that change, but I'm responsible for a lot of that change. And that's really exciting when you can see the tangible evidence of a community shifting over that time.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going.
Keeps you busy. Yeah. And you're such a pioneer of, as you say, diversity, encouraging women to get into coding, which has traditionally been a male dominated environment. Could you have done what you have done in the same way without the financial support and the programs that are around? And would you be asking the Western Australian government for more help because you want to do the extra 70,000 by the end of next year? So how does that sit with you? Are you getting good support? Have you got good support? Do you need more?
Yeah, so we're actually not funded by the WA government at the moment. Definitely a conversation we can have, not on a live webinar, Minister Dawson, but We work primarily with businesses that are looking to change their diversity landscape as a talent pipeline into the business. So we know that there's a whole heap of jobs that are currently in tech, and that's only going to change and grow over the next 5-10 years. And a lot of the businesses we're working with have diversity targets, but don't have the pipeline to be able to get them there. So we're working across, we're working with mining companies like Rio Tinto, we're working with banks, we're working with smaller startup organizations, kind of the whole breadth of different kinds of companies that are just looking for a talent pipeline and to invest in the future of technology and getting diverse input into that. So that's our model at the moment. I definitely think that there is a lot more room to grow. The tech sector is interesting at the moment because we have, particularly over East, there's been a little bit of a downturn in hiring from some of the larger companies. And I do fear that some of them are pulling back on investing in emerging talent, which then means in a year or two, when everything picks back up again, we won't have junior talent, we'll only have senior engineers. If you don't have a constant stream of people coming in, then the juniors of today are the seniors of tomorrow. So
what's that going to take to shift that, so that if we were in 12 months time, we're sitting here having the same conversation, and you say, actually, Steve, it's a lot better now. What would it take to make that happen?
Yeah, so we're just about to launch our next program in Perth and Brisbane. Still have a little bit of space, like our cohort's going to be a little bit smaller for these next ones. But really keen to kind of work with businesses to kind of close that gap. But I think it is really a mindset shift of investing in stuff like this is an investment. It's in future returns. It's not necessarily a short-term, oh, I can do this right now and then everything's solved, or I can put this on the back burner and I don't need to worry about my future talent pipeline. Switching to that investing in future growth mindset is what we need to see from businesses. And then I think from a government perspective, we've got some really interesting challenges on how we get ready for the future of AI, of data science. We've got some very interesting headwinds coming that ordinary Australians are going to need to prepare themselves for. So how are we building up that capacity and capability to get there?
Yeah, thank you, Kate. And I'm going to come to the Minister Stephen Dawson in just a moment. But Intan, I wanted to ask you, because of course, you've stayed here in Western Australia. Your husband obviously here as well. You're both working in the businesses. If people are not from Western Australia and they're looking in at us as a place to be, a place for tech, a place for innovation, a startup hub. Again, it might come as a bit of a surprise that this is all happening. So what advice would you give to people who are either in WA or not in WA and perhaps overseas about the ecosystem that we have now? What would you say to them? Like, come here, or don't come yet because we're not quite ready. What would it be?
Yeah, well, I think personally, I have a young family, and WA is really beautiful to raise a young family. And I think you can see a lot of people that have, been overseas when they sort of start having, especially during COVID, they all came back because, beautiful weather and everything and, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I think I've chosen to, really stay here, even though there's, especially in the kind of MedTech sector, there's definitely a lot of pull to go elsewhere. But as you said, we are in a huge number of, 60% of the time zones of the world, of the populations, and the world is so global now, so there are ways that you can be in touch with the global community and really leverage, and, you can travel and, visit places and that sort of stuff to make sure you keep that personal connection, but still, be based in, in Western Australia. And I think from the ecosystem perspective, I think because we're small enough, we really do support each other. Especially say like in the MedTech sector, it's so small, like we all know each other basically, and we're all really supportive, and we all love it being here and that sort of stuff. So I think there's definitely that real community that I think you might not have, or you don't typically have in other potentially bigger cities and that sort of stuff. So I think that would be my pitch of why I'm staying in WA and still being connected globally.
Great. Intan and Kate, thank you so much. I'm going to turn to Stephen Dawson, our Minister. Minister, what can you explain to us right now what is actually happening on the ground? So again, if people are thinking of coming to Western Australia, or they're already here and they want to be part of what's going on, can you give us a rundown of the schemes and the finances that are available? Anything that's top of mind for you right now that will help people really get to grips with what's happening here in Western Australia?
Sure. Well, I guess there's a range of opportunities. So we have our Future Health Research Innovation Fund, which is available for, I guess, the MedTech sector in particular, MedTech biotech sector. And so Intan was a recent recipient of our Innovation Seed Fund from that. The fund is a sovereign wealth fund. It's got about $1.8 billion, and then we get to spend the interest annually on med research and innovation. That's quite exciting. So, and this year there's a particular focus on innovation. We've done research up to now, but we haven't focused on innovation and on innovation to translate. So there's a lot of money available there. We also have our New Industries Fund, which was really established to, I guess, help accelerate new and emerging businesses in Western Australia. And that's focused on a range of things. We've got startup grants, innovation booster grants. We've got I guess, a commercialization bridge grant to help people move from that startup phase to the next phase, so that they get past the valley of death. And then we're spending money on a range of other things, including our Extend WA grant, which is a grant that goes to organisations and programs. And so we funded Kate previously under Extend WA, and that's funded other organisations, including our Scale Advisory Female Founders Program that I spoke at last night, or VentureX HQ. And that really is focused on providing digital skills or venture capital access and education and accelerator programs for women and female founders. And we're doing that in the First Nation space, and also trying to focus on regional areas too. So there's lots of money available. I released our 10-year strategy 2 years ago now. I want Western Australia to be a global hub of invention, investment, innovation, and impact. And so we're working incredibly hard to deliver on what the innovation strategy says, but also bring in some VC funds from around the world. And we've also helped establish 3 local VC funds here, including Purpose Ventures, Fund WA, and Quokka Capital, who've done an amazing job in helping fund some great startups who are now doing really well around the world. So there's lots of buckets of money. I think the ecosystem is positive, not without challenges, but I think it's a great time to be in Western Australia. And of course, I mentioned earlier this race to 2050. We are well and truly on a journey to get to net zero by 2050, and our government are keen to play a role in not only decarbonising our state, but our nation and our near neighbours. And so if we are going to do that, then technology is really important. So having a skilled, trained workforce, having people who can code, who came, I got to speak at Kate's graduation last week, some amazing women who have come from all walks of life who are now available to work in this sector. And so if we're creating opportunities to I guess, for people to take on these new jobs and to help us reach our emissions targets.
And I guess this may be an unfair question, and I know it's not, that I haven't discussed this with you. It's just come top of mind to me now as I'm listening to your responses. If you could wave a magic wand beyond what you're doing already to make change happen quicker, particularly with that 2030 year looming, and then, as you say, 2050 will be here before we know it, what would that swish of the magic wand be, and what would it bring for us?
It's a question I ask everybody I come across. And in fact, I had some meetings this week where I asked them about the magic wand and what would we do. I think as a minister, I can see a way of spending every single dollar in our state budget on technology and innovation. And I think it wouldn't touch the sides of what's needed. So always getting some more money, but I'm confident that we've got a significant investment at the moment in this area, and I'll continue to push for more money. But it's important that the money that we do have is put to good use. So training people, giving people opportunities for grants. And I think then us as a government dipping our toe into VC funding, which we're about to do, because I think that gives a great message to other investors that if the government's behind something, well, it's serious and we'll get involved too. So I think us sending the right message to people is good for the ecosystem too. So there's a range of things. There's not an easy answer. I'm a politician, Steve. But I think, you know, there's lots of things we can do, and certainly lots of things that I try to do as minister to help grow our ecosystem locally.
Yeah, and you've mentioned VC funds locally and named the funds, and you just said there we could do more of dipping our toes into the VC sector. What does that look like? Dipping your toe? What do you mean by that?
Well, look, treasuries, so treasury departments, wherever they are around the world, are inherently conservative, and so ours is conservative too. We're very happy. The treasury is happy to give grants to organizations and then say thanks very much, good luck. What I want us to do is to actually have skin in the game, and so through our Future Health Research Innovation Advisory Fund, we will shortly make an announcement about some money being available for VC that we will participate in. And then we have an industry attraction fund to bring new industries to Western Australia, and that too will provide some VC funding later in the year. So on multiple levels in different areas, we're saying to people, we're open for business. We want you to work with our amazing people in this state. We want you to work with our innovators and entrepreneurs. We want you to invest in them, and we're going to do it too. And together we can kind of, you know, can grow that opportunity.
So that would potentially see the West Australian government investing into not just one of those VC funds, but some of them, right? Is that correct?
Yes, so we will. So we'll invest in a few of them. So I'm not ready to make the announcement just yet, Steve, but we will invest in a number of them, and then they will make the investments, but it'll be our money, and hopefully there might be a return. But you know, I think Intan spoke earlier about her long journey, and you know, in the tech space in particular, and certainly MedTech, biotech, it does take a long time. So I'm not hopeful of whoever being a unicorn tomorrow and us getting a return on investment tomorrow by way of cash. I think the return on investment that I seek is the ecosystem growing and creating more opportunities for our people to stay locally and to innovate from here and to take their product or service around the world, but do it from Perth.
Stephen, thank you. And Kate, I just wanted to swing this over to you just briefly. Because we've heard Intan say, you know, Perth and Western Australia is a wonderful place to bring up a family. I know that for myself as well. However, for a lot of young people, and if you grow up in London, people say, oh God, I can't wait to get away from London. It's so busy. The tube's always on strike. There's potholes in the road. Young people can't wait to leave London, and they go somewhere else. They might come back. It's exactly the same for young people in Western Australia. There's this like, oh, we grew up in this most isolated city in the Western world. There's a big wide world out there. Why are we going to stay in WA? So that's pretty much a battle, isn't it? Or are we doing, from what Stephen's saying and from Intan's experience, are we doing enough to keep young people here, to let them know, hey, you can stay? I mean, go for a while maybe, but come back. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love Western Australia. I really could be anywhere in Australia very easily. I know I've got a lot of friends in Brisbane that would love me to move to Queensland. But I really could be anywhere in Australia and run the business that I run. But I'm very happy to be in Western Australia. Like Intan was saying, we've got amazing weather. I think it rained for the first time this year today, and we're at the end of April.
I heard that the ABC drive time show yesterday, the presenter was so excited because the weather guy said it was going to rain today. She was like, woohoo! And I was thinking, I spoke to my mum in the UK yesterday, and she said, it's raining again. You know, so it's we're lucky to have the rain today. Yeah.
I know we are, but like it's crazy that we're 4 months into the year, 5 months into the year, and it's the first rain. We've got amazing weather, we've got an amazing lifestyle. And I think from a business perspective, there's the kind of blessing and a curse of being in a smaller ecosystem. So the challenge is that perhaps there aren't as many opportunities, but the blessing is that it's very vibrant as a community and everyone knows everyone. You're only ever 2-3 connections away from the person you need to know. So to grow a business, I think that's really exciting. Like you were saying, it's a really great place to test products because it is a relatively easy market to spread around and kind of safe testing ground. We've seen like PayWave technology was used in Australia much more extensively than before it was overseas. So we've got a really lot of advantages from that small market mindset. I think for young people, we've got to really sell that idea of it is a place of innovation, it's a place of opportunity, it's a place of tech, it's a place of art and culture as well. So, you know, we still need to make sure that we've got business and economy, but we've also got things to do and festivals and art and music and all of those things that bring vibrancy to a CBD and to a state. But I think the people who say that there's, you know, not a lot to do, I don't think they're trying hard enough. And we've got so much to do in Western Australia. It's only a couple of hours drive to be in an entirely different climate, and the best beaches in the world. Yeah, I don't think you're trying hard enough if you say there's nothing to do here.
Yeah, I like that. You're a good ambassador for Western Australia. So thank you, Stephen, Intan, and Kate. So we've got about 14 minutes left, and I see we've got quite a lot of questions here. So let me start on some of these questions. And so first one I see is from James Stewart, and I know James because he was on the MBA program. I don't know whether maybe 10 years ago now. So hello, James. James's question is WA investing in permanent carbon removal through biocar? That looks like to me. I'll put that one to you, Stephen.
Yeah, biochar, I think it would be,
Biochar.
Steve.
Yes.
Look, I'm certainly the Minister for Innovation. I'm not the Minister for Environment or Climate Change or Climate Action anymore, but we're making a significant investment into a range of new technologies to help us reach those targets. So I mentioned the 2050 target. We've also got a target, a government target to reduce our government emissions by 80% by 2030. We are reducing, so we're stopping our reliance on coal over the next couple of years. So we're closing our coal-fired power stations. We have put a significant effort into sectoral emissions reduction, and we've got a SURF strategy. We're putting a lot of effort into newer technologies like hydrogen. So there's a range of things, and then there are some stuff that there are some things that the minister's working on in terms of new fuels. So I can't tell James for definite what we're doing on biochar, but certainly I'm aware that Rhys Whitby, the Climate Action Minister, has got a range of things underway.
Okay, thank you. And James, thank you for the question. This next question is interesting. It's an anonymous question, but this one was very much on my mind as an immigrant to this country, because it was incredibly difficult for me to come here and bring my family. We were turned down twice, I think, and I just kept at it like a lawyer until we got here. So here we are. But the question is, as an INSEAD grad, I'm interested to know what Western Australian government is doing to attract talent, one, from other states in Australia and also internationally. Unfortunately, well, the question's just disappeared. Where did that go? Help. Oh, it's gone. It's like the ether has edited it. I don't know where it's gone. But the question was saying that
it's just moved to answered.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know who's doing that because we haven't answered it yet. But the gist of the question was they applied and didn't get a visa, and they found it very difficult to come to Australia as a whole. So it's a really tough one, that, isn't it, Stephen? Because we do have some of the world's most strictest immigration laws. The UK and Ireland and Italy often look to Australia. And I know, you know, are you immigration as well, Stephen? You do so many hats. I can't keep up. But how does that go? Can you answer that one?
Yeah, well, as a sub-jurisdictional place, so we're not the federal government, so we're not responsible for immigration policy in Western Australia. I mean, we certainly do all we can to create opportunities to bring in workers or trained professionals from around the world. And so, for example, with our Future Health Research Innovation Fund, we've had some funding rounds to bring in, you know, smart people who are the top of their class, to bring them and their teams into Western Australia and to fund them to be here. We've also gone around the world looking for all sorts of people in all sorts of industries and help them migrate. I mean, it is not only is it beautiful, it is very diverse and multicultural. I think over a third of our citizens in Western Australia are born overseas. So So some people, certainly lots of people, can get in. Is there more we can do as a state? We continue to engage with the Commonwealth to ensure that there are more visas available for people who, you know, who have got degrees or who are in industries that we need to bring to the state. But it's the visas themselves is not something that we're responsible for. But you want to come to Western Australia, you can go onto our state government website and see the range of jobs that are available. And we have a range of offices around the world, Invest and Trade Western Australia offices, particularly in the Asia Pacific region, but also in Europe, in London and Frankfurt, and in the Middle East, in Dubai. And in fact, we've opened a new office in the US recently. Our offices can help you navigate processes and can put you in touch with others who are responsible for helping you get here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know when I got mine eventually, I was so fed up with the process. I just went, I'm not going now. My wife said to me, "Don't be ridiculous. You've done all this hard work. We got to go." So it was tough, and it's, you know, it's a great country. A lot of people want to come. So another question here is, and this is an interesting one because of course we know the answer to this, but the question is, any notable startups that have scaled out of WA and now playing globally? If yes, how is this success being plugged back home to nurture the young ones like that we've seen happening in Sweden? I don't know. Is that a question for you, Stephen? Kate, Intan?
I feel like I'm hogging the answer. So maybe Kate's going to say something, but before she does, I'm going to say Canva. So Canva came from Western Australia. So Melanie Perkins and started off in Western Australia, and I guess, but needed to move to Sydney to make it. And you know, but we've had people like Professor Fiona Wood, who came up with spray-on skin for burns victims, burn survivors, and that came from Western Australia. But again, that was sold overseas, and the money was made there. So one of the focus areas for me is to ensure that we are creating opportunities locally for people to stay. I mean, I do think, you know, certainly our PhD students, I want to see them get around the world and experience elsewhere, but I want them to come back. I think it might have been Intan who mentioned earlier, COVID was obviously, you know, terrible for the world, but one thing we found in Western Australia was we had our border closed for 2 years. And so if you were Western Australian and you were here, you couldn't leave, you know, you can only leave with great difficulty, and you couldn't come back in. And eventually, when the borders reopened, we saw all these smart, amazing people from around the world who missed their mother, daughter, son, whomever, and their family, grandmother, decide, you know what, it's time I go back to Western Australia for a holiday. And many of them have decided to stay. And so we've had this amazing brain gain. And what we found as a result of COVID is that you can basically do your job really anywhere in the world as a result of technology. And we're seeing a lot of that happen now. And so we've got Asia Pacific vice presidents who would ordinarily be based in Singapore now working from Perth, or indeed Broome, which is a beautiful, idyllic coastal town in the north of the state, you know, working from there. And so what COVID has shown is you can do it from anywhere. You can enjoy the beautiful place we've got, but also, you know, have a great job, have a world-leading job right here. Sorry, Kate. I think I stole your thunder on Canva.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think Canva's a really good story to tell that we don't tell enough. And from the second half of the question of how we're seeing that kind of trickle back, we're working with Canva to train up the next generation of talent. So they're working with us across Australia, which is really cool. We've also got Virtual Gaming Worlds, VGW, based out of Perth, which their founder is a billionaire. It's a $1 billion company. There's thousands of people working from all over the world on a solution with 600 or so based out of the Perth office. So we do have some big companies, big success stories. I think it's translating that to telling that story a little bit more globally. I think Australians sometimes are a little bit too modest of not shouting from the rooftops all of the cool stuff we do.
I'd agree with that. There's a question here. It says, what lessons can Western Australia, and we've only got 4 minutes left, what lessons can Western Australia share with other mining dependent countries, particularly those in Africa, additional insights on coal mining towns and how they need to reskill. Who'd like to take that one?
Look, I guess I can certainly take that. Sorry, Intan. Look, we are putting a significant effort into transitioning our coal communities from coal into new industries, and so our transition policy around Collie, which is the coal town at the moment, is exceptional. We're bringing in new industries, we're bringing in green industries, so we're looking at green steel opportunities. We've got skilled, trained people, who have got who are boilermakers or fitters or whomever who've trained for a long time. And so we're focused on creating jobs where they can easily and seamlessly transition into the new kind of economy, and focused on energy transition. So that I'm happy to share that with whomever. But if they Google Collie transition, so COLLIE, they can get a wealth of information to show what's out there. Separately, we're about to open a new green tech innovation hub. So that's been funded by Chevron and the Gorgon joint partners to really kind of boost the green tech opportunities that exist locally. And then finally, we also recently announced a relationship with Founders Factory. So a company out of the UK who are big in the innovation space, and that will be focused on nature tech. And so, so creating opportunities there to use our natural resources to our advantage, and create, world-leading tech from it as well. I think I'll leave it there, Steve.
Thank you, Stephen. And this one, I think Intan has got your name on it, although I know you're not the ambassador for biotech in the whole of Western Australia. But I looked at this one. I think it's interesting. It says, "Hello, I'm Sarah Pollitt, chair of a biotech. Do you have lab space in WA? There's a shortage in the UK, so you can rent some space." Intan, I don't know. Is that is there something we can do about that, Intan?
Yeah, I believe there are things in the work, and I mean, it's that to try and build this lab space capacity, and having a PC2 lab, and the research facility. Obviously, we've got world-class research facility like the Harry Perkins in Netherlands and Murdoch and Curtin, that we all have. We have lots of space. Space is not one that we, from a kind of land perspective. So certainly, I think there's certainly opportunities there. That's already existing and potentially, coming up in the future.
Great. Thank you, Intan. So we've got about a minute and a half left. So I'm just going to put the last words over to you three. Kate, 30 seconds on a final message to our audience that are listening and have expectations of Western Australia. What would you say?
I think it's a great place to do business. We've got an amazing community. I think that's the most important thing, is connect with community and find kind of like-minded people doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it is a community, a really strong community, as you mentioned earlier on. The one thing we have to watch out for in smaller communities where people do know each other is you can't burn too many bridges. So you have to be very good contacts every day.
Totally, which is not a bad thing, right?
It's a very good thing. It's a very
pretty good to go about life, not burning bridges.
Exactly.
And build a reputation of do what you do and do it well, and work on your kind of professional network, and good things will come.
Yeah. And Intan, 20 seconds from you.
Yeah, I think I reckon hit up Minister Dawson to try and get some funding. I think that's pretty good advice. No, I think not really. I think the minister, and it's been the last 2 years, I've seen a lot of funding into the startup ecosystem. So I think really appreciative of that. And I think people should look at the government website and be really active in looking at those grant funding. And there is a lot more support coming up. So do look for these network and these opportunities and support available.
Great. Thank you, Intan. Stephen, 10 seconds.
We're open for business. We want to have lots of diversity and inclusion here, and we want global connections. So come to WA, come to Perth.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Minister Stephen Dawson, Dr. Intan, Kate, thank you so much for joining us. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I wish we had more time. Thank you to all the questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them. And this is recorded, so you can watch this at another time as well and pass it on to people, put it on LinkedIn, etc. So thank you, everyone, and to all the support from INSEAD, from Sandra and Pascal at the team, and to the West Australian government, Jitsi and Janet Simmons there, and Charlie Gunningham, all the team there. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your time today. Goodbye.